This podcast is intended for informational purposes only and should not replace professional mental health care. If you are in crisis, please contact your local emergency number or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988. Welcome back to Hello Human, your resource for grounded guidance on staying connected with yourself and each other in these digital times. I am Dr. Joy.
And I am Aaron Jones, LMFT.
And we are here for what I'm going to say so far is probably my favorite episode.
If not our favorite episode to work on and to plan for, it's definitely one that's super important.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm excited to get into it.
Me
But of
too.
course, before we do that.
All right, we got our temperature check in.
Temperature check.
Okay. All right. So, on a scale of fully peacocking,
Okay.
to sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich, right?
Okay.
How unapologetically were you this week?
That is not where I thought that was going. Okay. Okay.
I throw curveballs.
You do. Peacocking to ostrich head in the sand. Now, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a good week to ask this question, too, because I was outside this week.
Okay.
Did a couple of things. I went to a couple of events. How was I? Now, I like a curveball, too. I'm going to curve it right back at you.
Okay, got it.
From head in the sand to because I feel like peacocking is like on purpose. I'm trying to get your attention, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wouldn't say that I was on purpose trying to get attention, but I will say that
Peacocking
just kind of might garner the attention, even when I'm not when I'm unapologetically myself. So I would say I am a rooster. Rooster in that I'm just being myself. A rooster is gonna crow. They just loud and they're just being themselves. But when they do it, it gets your attention. And they weren't trying to, they were just doing what they do. So that's me.
You've learned over time to just kind of naturally be yourself.
I'm just a rooster out here.
The peacocking happens. The roostering happens.
Just out here.
Okay, well that's what's up. And also, for me, I think, the audience is kind of getting the flavor now. Hey, I'm a little skittish. I wouldn't say I had my whole head in the sand this week. But I am telling you, there was a lot of times I was ducking and covering this week because it was a lot going on.
Okay.
It was a lot going on. When I was researching for this episode, there was a lot going on.
Sure.
A lot of stuff was coming up this past week involving AI, involving like the ethics of AI.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on.
Sure.
Personal life was off the chain this week, all kinds of things. And I think everybody can kind of relate. You just have some of those weeks that are just simply like that. And I can honestly say that I really wasn't able to be much of myself this week, which happens sometimes, right? I was fully aware that I was not negotiating away parts of myself, but lending only certain parts of myself, allowing those parts to come out and keeping other parts at bay, right? And sometimes I think strategically we have to make those choices.
Absolutely.
And it's not about being less of myself. Mm-hmm. It's more about strategically choosing when it is safe to be more of myself.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's like a little nuance there. Yeah. But I just wanted to throw it at you this week and see how you were doing with our check-in. Yeah. As always, it's good to see you. You look great. Love to see you smiling. I'm loving the energy. You look great. So welcome in. Yeah. And that was the check-in.
Okay. So just to take the check-in a tiny step further.
Okay.
And you tell me if this is something you feel like you want to answer in this moment. What kind of support can you benefit from the most right now?
That is a really challenging
question. Okay. And that's why I wanted to,
That was a good one. You know what? I had a meeting with a colleague of mine who contacted me to do some case consultation, right? Working clinicians, we do case consultations often. It's kind of part of the job where, if I'm stuck with working with some folks, I might ask for insight.
Yeah, like another pair of eyes, different perspective.
Another clinician, another pair of eyes.
Different theoretical
Absolutely,
orientation.
absolutely, all of that. And, I was happy to do it. I always am happy to show up. And as I was talking to her, towards the end of that consultation, surprisingly, she just started kind of pouring into me. She had really expressed that her appreciation for my willingness to take the call and work with her and always be someone available that she can kind of pull from and collaborate with. And just pouring back into my spirit, like, the podcast thing, she's really excited about that. She's like, oh, yeah, you're great for that. You're the exact kind of person that needs a space like that and needs to do that. So, I bring that up to say, like, I think what helps me the most are definitely words of encouragement. Sometimes, for all the nerds out there, for any Marvel people in the audience, I'm kind of like a character named Gladiator. Now, Gladiator is as strong as he believes himself to be. So he can rise to any occasion, provided that he's feeling confident, right? So in kind, words of affirmation like that, when people pour into me, and it kind of helps me feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more in my skin.
Kind of fills the tank a little bit.
Yeah, actually really did. So I was very, very appreciative to that colleague. And yeah, I can firmly and confidently say I'm a words of affirmation, kind of person. So
noted. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, thank you for asking me that question too. That was a really tough one to answer on the spot, but I do appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dr. Joy.
Absolutely. So now that we've checked in with each other, we want to talk a little bit about what this episode feels like. And I want to name that I mentioned earlier, this might be one of my favorite episodes. The reason why is because as I was going through this, it felt, and I was coming up specifically with our word for this episode feels like, the more I sat with it, the more I was like, okay, no, what I'm describing is exactly the season that I'm in my actual life. So this is not just me talking about the episode. It's me giving myself language for what I'm really experiencing right now in my life. And that's really the point of this whole segment, right? We've been saying, in unprecedented times, and we've never seen a lot of the things that we use in our everyday lives that are just pervasively a part of everything that we do. We kind of take for granted that this is all very new, right? And so some of the ways that we're impacted by these things and some of the experiences that we're having, we might not have language for how to describe and communicate, because this is also new to the human experience. So the whole point of this segment was to say we can create language to help us communicate about what we're experiencing. And until this episode, every time I sit to do this part of it, it's like, how am I describing the episode? But this time it was like, oh no, this is really about my life. Right? And so I just want to kind of give you that context as we move into it, because it's also informing then, because it's so near and dear to me and so personal and prevalent right now, it's also a large part of my perspective when we're getting into the Let's Unpack That segment as well. So
okay, well, lead on. I'm here. I'm ready for it.
So before I share with you all the things, I want to know, what do you think archiving
Here it goes.
The word, this episode feels like archiving. What do you think that means?
Okay. All right. Archive.
Okay. That's one part.
Like an account of an experience, right? I'm trying to account for maybe how I spend my time, maybe how I make my mark, or maybe how I make impact or something. When I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about an archive as someone who preserves.
So that's one part.
Is that part of it? Okay. You said archiving. The second part has to have to do something about living it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Creating it, doing it, living it.
Your eyes are asking the question.
Very expressive eyes over here, because I know you, but I'm curious to see where you going with this one.
Well, you're close as usual.
Okay.
You got the kind of,
because I know how you think.
Yeah, you're right there, and it is, you're right about it being sort of a hybrid of the words, right? Okay. Archive and live or live.
See, I'm on to you. I'm on to the heist now.
Yes. Okay. So I might have to switch it. I have to curveball you next time. But you're right about that. So it is archive and live or live. And the definition that I've come up with for this word is truth-telling as a devotional act for the future, where your perspective becomes a vessel of ancestral memory and future wisdom.
Oh, wow.
And you're no longer just expressing, you are preserving and planting. So you were right on with the preservation piece of it.
Yeah, but
also right on with the you're living it in real time.
But you brought it. You always kick it up a notch. I mean, now I got to commune with my ancestors.
Because
you know what I'm saying, I got to archive with my ancestors.
It's true.
Okay, I'm with
true.
that. I didn't even. Sorry to my ancestors. I didn't even think about them. I probably should be thinking.
That's all
about
right, because
they
with you anyway. Thinking about them or not, they right with you.
They right with
they
me.
part of you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. That's really expansive. Wow.
And it had to be, right? Because the way I'm thinking about this, and this is, I'm gonna share with you a little bit, but my approach to this was, it was important to me in coming up with the definition of this word that it encompassed past, present, future elements. Like it was it was more about time. And my experience of time, and trying to bring all of time into a single instance, because that's essentially what I feel like what we're doing right now. If we're talking about, the topic today is creativity won't be automated. What makes you irreplaceable? And I think about this specifically from the perspective of being a creative person. So there's creativity, which may or may not manifest as what we traditionally understand as creative.
Sure, of course.
But my brain just goes there, like I said, because of where I am right now in my own life. I'm in a season of embracing my creative self and defining and embodying her in ways that are more intentional than I have in the past. And so because I'm steeped in the work of that process, this comes up for me as I'm looking at this topic. And the thing about time for me is I'm thinking specifically about AI, and what I understand is that it is only mirroring back what we input, right?
I see that.
And specifically in the world of creativity, there's concern about, now people are just going to use AI to create graphics and visuals or write or do all kinds of, I think a big fear is that people are going to devalue creatives because they're going to think, I can just give a prompt to this thing and it'll push out whatever. And I don't think that that's necessarily wrong, but I do think that there are some human qualities that AI will never be able to replicate. So that's one part that we can talk about today, is there are things about human beings that are just irreplaceable, that a computer will never be able to do. So I think it's important to highlight those things. But the second part of that for me is, if we shy away from using AI as creatives or as any group of people who could risk being underrepresented or misrepresented or just completely erased and not represented at all, it's so important to think about how we are using these types of tools, because, again, going back to what I said earlier on, AI is only mirroring back to us what we input. So if we shy away and we don't use it because we feel threatened by it, or we feel like it makes us lesser than because I'm a creative, I can do the things, I don't need to use this, and it's sort of like a rebellious perspective, which I completely understand. But what I also understand is, if we do not engage, what we risk is, as AI becomes the primary source of information, books are being banned. Education is being defunded.
Oh, I agree.
Right?
Oh, I agree.
All kinds of things. I was just talking to a friend who works in medical research, and she was talking about, because of all the funding that's being stripped of the work that they do. Right? And so that means that's going to impact the results of those studies, and who is represented and who is counted.
Who even can participate in those
all
studies.
of those things, right?
Absolutely.
Certain words are being banned, we can no longer use. So as that happens, And AI, as soon as you go into a search engine, the first answer that's going to come up is an AI produced answer.
Correct.
And
Correct.
if the people putting information into these systems is not a diverse group, then the answers that come out won't reflect their existence, let alone their perspective. So I wrestle with, this is why it's important that we are open to the use of it and we're leaning in, but that we are mindful and understanding that there are certain parts of our humanity that just cannot be replaced, and we are responsible as future ancestors, right? We are responsible for participating in and contributing to the narratives that will come up through these resources and tools, or we will not have put our future generations in a position to even know who we are. I think that there's something to be said about creating spaces in real life where we can pass along this wisdom. So I'm going to put that there, because nothing will ever replace, what I call kitchen table conversations, right?
Absolutely.
Where we get together. Like nothing will ever replace that. But as we become increasingly digital and our information is readily accessible through these platforms and devices and things, we have to be mindful of whether or not we are participating in the database that's being built that will tell the story to the future about who we are right now.
That was a lot. And
I
I'll have to say, I'm gonna have to sit with some of that, because I definitely agree with you, right? 100% I agree with you. And I think what's coming up for me is when I was doing the research for the episode this week, I kept running into a lot of just fear-based energy around AI. It really reminds me of almost like Y2K or something, when people, you remember when everybody had a home phone and there was that, few years at a time where now nobody has home phones and everybody has cell phones. So it's kind of like that kind of energy, but rather than operating in fear, I'd like to help folks maybe connect with something like curiosity about it, right? Yeah. Like, how can we be curious about it? How can we participate in it in a way that's thoughtful and mindful and does accurately represent who we are?
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, I did want to share just a little bit, with the show and with the folks about some research that I did. And we'll keep it brief, folks. So from time to time, we may make mention of larger studies that we pull from. And we will have that information, nested in the show notes on all platforms for you to see. But at any case, I just wanted to share with you what I found, right? So after looking at several different studies, the two that were most important was Paramathi 2020 and 24, and also Powell et al. 2022. So now in these two studies, both of these were qualitative studies, and both of them were quantitative studies, meaning they took large groups of folks, asked them a bunch of questions, and then counterbalanced the answers with a lot of statistics, right, to rule out outliers and so forth, right? So what we're left with is a pretty solid understanding of the people that they studied. Okay. And of these two studies, about 700 folks were interviewed and studied during these things, and they were asked all kinds of questions of like why they were fearful of AI, what industries they worked in, what parts of AI would be more important to them, for example. So one of the things that came up that was really interesting first was like AI in the banking industry and how it is important for us to, you see, you're already hitting it. Important for us to participate in this because some of these AI tools are already starting to present with a certain kind of fraud amongst people who are unaware, who don't understand how they move in the banking industry. So that's one aspect of it. AI is now involved in your money. So you want to make sure you understand how that's moving in the background.
These computers out of my coin purse.
They're already in your pocket. Okay. So that to me was very, very interesting. And, as I mentioned before, we'll have the study up. You guys can read what they're doing in the banking systems. It's very interesting. The second one was a behavior-based study. And what they really did in this study, they were looking at how can we get people involved in the process and what stops them from entering into the process? What stops them from having access to the resources available to run AI, right? a lot of stuff came up, right? Access things kind of came up. But what was most important in this study, for example, is the subset of people that they took were about from ages maybe 40 to about 65. So they're still studying folks within this demographic and really not wanting to lose those people in the process of learning the AI. So what was most important for this subgroup that they studied is access to resources, ease of use, simple language to understand what's going on, right? Because if folks aren't participating in this first wave of AI and learning the language and what language is used, you're not going to understand what's going on, right? So I just wanted to mention those two studies for this particular episode. We'll have more in the future, things like that. But I want to infuse a little bit of empiricism in this because research is starting to be done. That's really important.
Yeah. And so when you think about that in the context of making sure that we're mindfully navigating, right? Because up until this point, it could be argued that we are anti. And I don't think that was our intention.
Right.
But I do think that we have been saying it's here, it's happening. How are we navigating mindfully and staying connected to our own truths and not being influenced necessarily, or I should say unconsciously influenced? Because I think we will be. You can't not be, right?
Right.
But I think, how are we not being unconsciously influenced by the ways in which AI shows up and we're interacting with it? I'm thinking right now, I've been getting a bunch of spam calls, speaking of AI in your pockets. I've been getting a bunch of spam calls about loans and da-da-da. But every time, and what annoys me the most about it is that it's a very much an AI person calling. The voice that I hear is very much AI. But they try to make it sound not
conversational.
So it's like a weird, out of place laugh. It'll be like, so call us back when you have a chance. And we'll be around till 7. I'm like, what is that random? What are you doing?
Person?
You're actively trying to deceive me into believing this is a human being when it is very clearly not. Point being, when you think about these studies, and specifically that are saying, it's in your bank account, if you don't get in early and learn the language, you're putting yourself on the margins of a new culture that is emerging, because that's what it is.
Yes.
And the entry point to any culture is going to be the language.
Exactly.
And when you think about that, how does that play into the way folks can begin to mindfully navigate this? Is it that we're saying you should be reading up and learning the language, like taking a class, or just getting on the platforms and playing around? Or I guess that's however you learn, whatever learning looks like for you.
But, both of these studies were looking at what are people's everyday experiences. How does it affect our daily convenience, for example?
Sure.
Right? So I think it's much more pervasive than we even realize. I know pervasiveness kind of has a negative connotation, but it's more in the background than you realize.
Sure.
And the whole point of this is not to fear it, but to be curious about it.
Yeah.
See where your entry point is, make it make sense for you, and get in the game.
Yeah, get in the game is right. And specifically when we say get in the game, this is about, again, understanding and adopting a culture. But as with if you're traveling, or me, I'm relocating, right, to another country.
Right.
As much as I am very much honoring the culture from, the food, the language, the music, all of it, right, the history, I don't intend to go there and just disappear as Joy. Like, I'm still me, right? And so I think the part of what we are suggesting and really advocating for with this episode is get in there, get curious, and part of that journey is, what is my special sauce? What is uniquely true to me as a human being that cannot be replicated? Because a large part of when you're talking about getting in there and learning the language so that you don't, 1, get left behind, but 2, get erased. The other part of that is, as AI does show up and take jobs and industries out because human productivity may or may not be as necessary.
Absolutely.
Part of that you understanding how to navigate that and preparing to brace yourself for or whatever that is also being able to identify what is the thing that no AI is going to be able to do. And that's going to take sitting with like, what is the thing that is a part of my humanity that even as AI becomes more and more a part of our culture and society, there's still a thing about who I am that cannot be replaced, erased.
That's it.
Duplicated, That's it. Any of those things. And so I think that's also part of this conversation.
I agree with you. Sorry to cut you off there. I agree with you, Dr. Joy. And I think for folks where some of this inner work might be a little bit out of reach right now for you, think about it this way. Also, there will be new industry created from AI, right? Sure. You know, it'll be born of necessity, for example, right? Believe it or not, there was a time in this world where plumbers didn't exist. Right.
Cause plumbing,
right now think about it. Hey, no matter how high tech we are, the plumbing has to flow, and human hands at this point have to be able to touch that and work through that and try to redirect that and put the plumbing in people's home, whatever the case may be. So if we can't access the inner work necessary to do all the things that we discuss, hey man, get in there and see how you can be a part of it at any level. Sure. Right? Can I lay the cable? Can I be a repair person? Can I write the code? Whatever I can do. Get in there. Yeah. Get in the game. Get in the game.
I love that. So moving into our rooted reflection, we like to give you something that you can kind of roll around in your mind. You've heard our perspective. We share with you our insights and experiences, but we want to make sure that you have a couple of reflections that help you to connect with your own process, where you land on the spectrum of everything that we're speaking about. And so the rooted reflection, first thing I want you to do is just sort of think about 3 creative gifts or quirks, right? Things that are unique to you. Again, your special sauce. What is it that makes you? Absolutely. How can you tap into and amplify those things and bring them to the forefront of how you show up in the world, and more specifically, how you show up in your work? And the second thing is identify 3 ways that you can express that this week. I love what you're saying, which is like maybe you don't have the capacity or even the wherewithal to sort of navigate these sort of deeper tunnels into the thinking about all of this, but there might be some surface things that feel accessible that you can do this week that really amplify and center the things that make you uniquely you. So actively and intentionally sit with yourself and think about what those things are and seek your opportunities to actually live them out and embody them in real life.
Well said, Dr. Joy. Okay.
All right. Well, you want to close this out?
I do. I will. Thank you. What a great episode this week.
That's good.
Okay, folks. So until we meet again, take this with you. I am uniquely gifted and ever evolving. I am uniquely gifted and ever evolving. And that'll bring it to a close.
That feels good.
Yeah.
That feels good.
Nice to sit with you today, Dr. Joy.
So good to be with you. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. We are looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then.
Take care, y'all.